Hey everyone, this is Carbonite, bring you a match from last weekend's case tourney over at Project CGC. So now this is going to be the first weekend that Minerva Rising BT8 is going to be legal, and as you can see, I am actually going to be piloting one of the new decks on the right, Maelstrom, which I honestly feel is a really solid deck, given the current meta. Things might change once we get Chronojet, but I still have to do quite a bit of testing. Anyways, on the left, we do have a buddy of mine, Danny, piloting a Youthberg deck, which he's borrowing from a friend. So getting into the match, just going to be riding up, actually taking the first Vanguard swing, mostly because I do want to be able to have that guaranteed 1 damage, and it means that I can guard safely next turn without having to worry about being damage denied, because going into this matchup, honestly, I feel like Maelstrom does have a very good youth matchup, mostly because it can actually kind of turtle up the same way that Youthberg does. It makes just stupid crazy advantage, as we're going to see later into the game, so much so that it's actually able to go basically blow for blow with Youthberg and basically match the advantage it's making. Anyways, riding into the grade 2 Algos here, we do actually get a free search of Judgment Maelstrom, which, in case you don't know, it is a bit of a New York card. It's basically a set order that whenever you play it, you get a Reborn anything. Well, not anything. You get a Tear Dragon or an Aquaforce card. Anyways, we're just going to be swinging in, actually hitting a critical trigger, and we're going to see Danny hit both a heal and a crit. Fortunately, in the correct order, so that he is going to be staying at 2. And looks like we're going to be moving into his grade 2 turn, riding into the grade 2 youth, checking that top 3. Actually going to be adding a persona ride off the ride line skill, not calling anything, which is not entirely bad in this position against Maelstrom. You really don't want to be calling anything because Maelstrom does actually have retire. As you see, we're just going to be guarding that with a 15 OT to pass. Just because I already have the 1 damage from last turn, I don't really want to risk a crit and stay at that 1 damage, because that's really all I need going into this turn. So we're going to be riding into that Maelstrom, thankfully, looks very nice as a secret, I will say. Getting the Algo skill, which is honestly just another amazing skill. Let's you check top 7 and call either an Aquaforce or a Tear Dragon. Actually going to be calling out that Tidal Assault because I do not have one in rotation yet. Another amazing thing about this deck, as you can see, for my ride line, my first ride, I discarded that Inlet Pulse. Now, normally Inlet Pulse is a really good card that you want to keep in your hand, but thanks to the fact that you have searchable removal through your own ride line, it really doesn't matter because you can just play it on your turn 3 and just call it back out. So it makes it easy discard fodder. Anyways, swing that Inlet Pulse in, unfortunately hitting a defensive front trigger. Just swinging with the Tidal Assault. Since it is the second battle, Tidal Assault can actually counterblast 1 and restand itself. Mostly doing that just to get the attack. The 4 attacks, because Maelstrom, when he is the 4th attack or more, you get a draw card, and we are going to be swinging for a 1 to pass. Unfortunately, not hitting the grade 3 from set 8, as well as a PG, and then just using the Inlet Pulse to draw another card. So as you can see, I drew 2 cards with the Inlet and the Maelstrom along with my drive check, so my hand is looking extremely healthy here. Not to mention, I am only at 1 damage, so this first grade 3 turn from Youth is going to be not very threatening at all, honestly, which is kind of what you have to do when you're playing against Youth. You really do just have to guard early, kind of tank their first grade 3 turn when they go into their Tempest, because they're pushing for really big numbers, and just hope for some defensives and hope you don't have to throw your entire hand away. Anyways, apologies for the field being cut off. I believe on the other side we do have the other Therapy Angel, which was discarded off Youthberg's skill and Soul Blasted to call back onto the board. We're going to see a Schneisel coming down, adding a copy of... Gosh, I always forget the other one. Is it Zest? No, I think it's... whatever, it doesn't matter. The blue one. And on the other side, I believe we are actually just going to be calling it out, the grade 3. Calling a Witch behind the Vanguard and just swinging. Naturally, this is... I always just like to take the first one because if they hit a crit, whatever, as we see he's going to do here. It's not too bad. I do need the damage. With 2 damage in Maelstrom, you do have a guaranteed, more or less, 6 attacks or 5 attacks, depending on how your board is set up. But as we can see here, like I was talking about, we do actually get the defensive, so that's going to make the rest of these attacks hitting for a lot less. That thing is called a Gust. I just remembered. Anyways, discarding another Therapy Angel for the Gust skill to give it a drive. Looks like this Schneisel is going to be swinging for 35, I believe. With the trigger, I believe we put it there. So that is going to be like a 15k guard, thanks to the fact that I did get a defensive trigger. So it looks like I'm thinking about how I just want to be guarding this. All right, so it looks like we are just going to be guarding with that 15k shield. This Vanguard is going to be hitting for really big, so I'm just going to be using my Elementario, discarding the grade 3. Thoughts on the grade 3? It's an alright card. It is kind of like a budget inlet. It does hit a little bit nicer numbers because it does get an extra 10k. But it's honestly, it's not really necessary. It's just another tier dragon for you to call. I think probably like the second best call over after inlet. As you can see, I did take the Gust attack from the rear guard. I would have preferred not to, but it was just kind of an awkward number where I didn't really want to waste shield or like waste intercept. But honestly, being at 4, I would really rather not. I only need 2 CB actually to do this play, because as we can see here, I am going to be starting off with a Persona Ride, which is really good. I'm going to be calling out the Inlet Pulse with the Maelstrom skill by discarding 1 and giving it the skill where at the end of the battle that attacks, if it's the first battle, I can actually counterblast 1 and re-stand it. So we're going to be swinging with that Inlet. Thanks to the fact that we are on Persona Ride, this is going to be hitting for a nice 23, which is only a 15k guard, but as we can see here, he is going to get another defensive trigger. So for those of you at home, that's 4 defensive triggers, and he is currently at 4. So it looks like we're just be swinging with the Tidal Assault at the Schneisel. It is hitting for 20, so probably not going to be guarding that. Thankfully, Tidal Assault is really nice because he doesn't actually have to swing at the Vanguard. As long as it's the second battle, you can always counterblast 1 and restand him. So that's going to be second. Here comes the third. What's it called? The Inlet Pulse, swinging again at the Vanguard, going to be hit with a 5k shield. Swinging for the fourth attack, the Maelstrom, which is really nice because if you notice my board, I have the Wheel Assault, meaning that I'm going to be pushing up that Inlet Pulse, which means I have 2 columns that I can actually stack triggers on. And I also get that field control, retiring that Therapy Angel, and basically just blanking the entire column. So we're going to do drive checking first, a critical trigger, putting all the effects on the Tidal Assault because that is hitting for 28. Which is going to be a much nicer number than the Inlet Pulse is, 23. Actually hitting a heal, which is going to really just kind of make up for my little bit of a misplay, I guess. Taking the Gust attack, stacking everything on the Tidal Assault to make it 48, kind of forcing his hand out because that is a lethal swing. Was it 48? It might have been 38. I think it should have been 48 because 28, 38, 48, yeah. I think we might have underguarded there because that was a 20k guard. I might have said the wrong number at the time. Anyways, just swinging at the Gust with the other Inlet Pulse because it's either a 5k shield or a 20k shield. Just doing some nice cleanup, even if they hit defensive. Honestly, another reason I really do like Maelstrom, where you can just kind of just like take out their rears in the front row with your rear guard attacks, kind of ensuring they don't hit defensives so that your later attacks are hitting for a lot better numbers. And you do also have that Maelstrom skill to actually retire the back row, just basically cleaning up their field like every single turn while making advantage. As you can see, I used the Maelstrom skill to draw 1 card, and then I had 2 Inlet Pulses, which both went to the soul and just drew me 2 more cards. Anyways, as we can see, we're seeing a little bit of the problems of calling that Therapy Angel to boost the Gust last turn. Meaning we have to call the Witch to the other side to boost the Verde, but which kind of does mean you do have to swing with that, and you don't really get the power off Tempest. You're basically losing out on an extra 5k, but we do see me actually taking that and getting rewarded for that, actually getting a draw trigger, and we're actually going to see a Tempest skill, which something I learned in this match, Tempest can actually only bottom deck 1 card, because as we see here, he gets a 1 and a 2, meaning that he actually gets to choose which one of my rear guards he wants to bot deck. And he's actually going to be bot decking that Wheel Assault, because at this point, I do believe I already have another title in the drop zone, meaning that if I had another order, I can honestly just reborn another one from the drop zone. So we're just going to be swinging with that Tempest for 28, I believe. Hitting over trigger here. Doesn't mean a ton, just because I do know I have another PG in hand. Going to be swinging with that Gust for Twin Drive, PGing that because I do not want to risk that crit. because he does have drive checks thanks to the overtrigger. Anyways, coming back to my turn, I do have the nice 2 CB, which I need in order to do 6 attacks, and I do have the Persona Ride, meaning that these attacks are going to be hitting pretty good numbers. He is only at 4, meaning that I do have to push 2 damage this turn, and he does have a pretty bulky hand, especially after going for the Tempest, which is the main way that Youthberg makes a lot of advantage. And as you see here, another Inlet Pulse coming down from my hand, which I drew off the 4 cards that I drove check and drew last turn, basically being able to do the same play that I did last time yet again. So unfortunately, I don't have the Wheel Assault this turn, which means I can't actually get that 6th attack by moving up the Inlet Pulse. However, I do still have the Inlet that is under Maelstrom skill, swinging for 23 2 times, and I do have the Tidal Assault, which can actually swing at the rears. So we are going to be swinging first damage, another trigger, a front trigger this time, which is honestly just the worst kind of trigger when you're a multi-attack deck. Swinging the Tidal Assault at the Verde, which it still does hit because it is 20 under the Persona Ride, using the skill, almost forgetting to use Tidal Assault skill, which I think I forgot to mention last turn. Tidal Assault does actually have the skill that when he attacks, you can Soul Blast 1 and give 5 cave to your Vanguard, which is just, you use it once and it's really good just because it makes a really nice magic number. As we can see here, this Maelstrom is hitting for 28. Drive checking 2 cards, 2 blanks. And I do believe we did see a bit of a misplay. The Tidal Assault swung at the Gust, and it actually killed it when I don't think it should have, because Gust, thanks to the front trigger, should have been at 23 and not 13. So honestly, he should have an extra Gust right now, but you know, it's a misplay. What can you do? Anyways, obviously, drawing yet another 3 cards thanks to the Inlet Pulse that I called out with Maelstrom, and the other one I called from hand, drawing 1 off Maelstrom's skill, drawing 2 more off the Inlet along with my drive check. So my hand is still, even after all that, looking very healthy. As you can see, as I was talking about earlier, just like the amount of advantage Maelstrom can make every single turn while multi-attacking is just like, honestly, like on par with Youth. As you can see, I'm just like easily keeping up with, no matter how much he's getting his +2s, he's getting his twin drive, 4 drives a check, 4 drives a turn, excuse me. Anyways, we're going to be actually seeing him call a regular Youthberg over there. Going to be taking the attack. Unfortunately, I don't hit a defensive here. I did decide to just take the attack because I want a nice free damage and not having to worry about damage checks. As you can see here, I do guard with my OT. Thanks to the fact that his OT is out, I don't have to worry about him breaking through it. I'm going to be giving that power to the Schneisel. Looks like it was actually a witch behind boosting that other Youthberg. So we are going to be using the skill to give Gust an extra drive. And then I believe we are going to be using Gust's skill to discard 1 and get an extra drive check. So this Schneisel, I believe, is at 25 or 35, depending on the Persona Ride. I kind of missed it earlier. Anyways, just swinging for that Gust. Probably a decent play because I did use 2 perfect guards in the last turn, and we have already seen my Alberia out, which means I believe I only should have 1 more PG, which unfortunately for him, I do actually have in my hand. But this Gust is hitting for, I believe, 20 or 33. But it doesn't really matter because I'm just going to be PGing, which I was able to see, obviously, because I was drawing a ton of cards. So now the Schneisel is going to be going up to 35, I believe. So it looks like we are just going to have to guard this because that is super lethal. So we're going to guard 20, 33. And I believe it is 35. So I'm going to need another 5k. So I think I'm just thinking about what I want to be guarding with this. It doesn't really matter because we saw the Judgment Maelstrom in my hand off the last drive check. So whatever I guard with, I can honestly just call it back. And it looks like we're going to be starting off with another Persona Ride, which is, I believe, the last one, using that Judgment Maelstrom, calling back the Tidal Assault, and this time actually giving it an extra 5k since it is a second one. And we're going to be calling out that grade 1, which I'll talk about in a minute, but obviously we're using the Maelstrom skill, calling back the Inlet Pulse, and going to be starting with our attacks. So that grade 1 behind the Vanguard, it is a 7k, but what it does, it came out in set 7, is if your rearguard attacks, and it's the first battle of the turn, it gets an extra 5k. So this inlet gets an extra 5k thanks to that grade 1, meaning that it's not hitting for 23, but it's actually hitting for 28, which is a really nice number, a very good, excellent number. So as we were to see, he's going to be intercepting with a Schneisel and having to commit another 15k. Counterblasting 1 with the skill off Maelstrom, hitting for another 28, which means another 20k guard. So we're really getting down to the ropes here. It looks like we are going to be PGing. Makes sense. I mean, it's a 2-card guard unless you have a front. Going to be swinging the Tidal Assault for yet another 28. So this is one of the reasons I really like Maelstrom. You're hitting these really good magic numbers, and you're hitting multiple times. Again, using that Tidal Assault, giving 5k to Maelstrom. So Maelstrom's going to be hitting for 28, 35 with the boost. Once again, another 2-card guard. And this time, a really cheeky play here, which I sometimes do. Wheel Assault, exchanging that grade 1 with the Inlet Pulse. So now I have another attack, and I believe he only has 3 cards left in hand. It's a really cheeky play, but I usually only do it when I know that I have the game or I'm trying to push for a game. So swing with the Maelstrom, drawing the 1 card, and then drive checking. Looks like this is going to be hit with just a free PG. So we're going to drive check 1. I believe, we can't see here, but I believe it is a critical and a critical. So we're going to swing for 37 with that grade 1, and that is going to be the game. And just for note, the last 2 damages were also triggers, meaning that this was a 6 defensive trigger game, or 7 because he actually healed down. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Go ahead and do all that YouTube stuff. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.